Greetings, everyone. My name is Joshua Johnson, and today we're going to go through some best practices for designing courses in Canvas, which is the Learning Management System, or LMS, of Wisconsin Lutheran College. This presentation was originally given at the Faculty Development Day in May of 2024, and we have a couple of goals within this presentation. Namely, we are going to focus on a few of these 6 things. Really, the idea of chunking content, thinking about accessibility, and making things user-friendly. Overall, this first goal I always leave on these slides because before you get into Canvas and really start pushing things around, you want to think about the objectives of your course and understand what it is that you are trying to do, and then being able to leverage Canvas's features to assist you in really getting to those objectives, the main objectives of the course. And that's going to tie in directly to the materials that you provide in number 2 and the assessments that you do in number 3. Our focus really is going to be on utilizing clear and intuitive navigation. This was one of the things that the Faculty Development Committee had talked about. We felt that as a whole, we have a lot of people using Canvas to do the things that Canvas is designed to do, that is really delivering material, delivering assessments and assignments, and collecting those materials. But now we want to focus on getting students to those materials and really helping them as they jump into a new semester, and especially thinking about a new student, a freshman who has just gotten through WOW weekend and is overloaded with all kinds of information and places to go, etc. They get to their first class, they jump in, and they just see a giant list of things to do. So over here on the right, I have borrowed an example homepage from another university, and you can see some of the basic things that are here. This homepage really is the first thing students are going to see. It's got a little space to welcome them to the course, and it gives them instruction on where do I go from here? What am I going to do first? So it's got this start here. It even has a little area where they can jump to specific modules, weeks, units, however you want to organize that within your course. So we're going to focus a lot on this idea of using pages, things like the home page. Later I'm going to talk about not just having a home page for the course, but perhaps even having a home page for each unit or each week, whatever kind of chunking of content you decide to do, perhaps providing a home page that gives a little bit more context there. Some other things that I will highlight here really talk about this organizing modules. Modules are kind of like the backbone of Canvas, and being very consistent with your naming. Naming assignments in Canvas, naming assignments in your syllabus, the files that you use and link to, making sure things have a very clear and understandable naming scheme. That also helps me if you ask for assistance in your course and I go in and start looking. Sometimes it's hard for me to figure out, like, what were they actually referring to in this assignment. So I'll talk a little bit about how I do that later. One of the first things before we jump into that home page is talking about the built-in menu that is in Canvas. This is our navigation menu. You can see it right here on the left. There is a bigger menu that is kind of user dependent over here, where you can get to your account and dashboard, calendar, etc. But in each course there is this navigation menu. And what you're seeing here is probably what needs to be in that course. And every time I talk to instructors about this, I get a sense that people are asking the same question, like, well, where's the assignments? Where's the files? Where's the discussion pages? Because those can be shown on the navigation menu on the left, but it really is considered best practice to hide the things that I have displayed here. These files and assignments, quizzes, and discussions are really just kind of collections of those things. So I really was kind of nervous because I've been telling people for a long time, Canvas even has it as part of their best practice to hide these materials. And for a long time I thought like, well, am I just preaching this because this is what Canvas says? I have done some research, looked at a lot of instructional design websites for institutions like Michigan, Stanford, Harvard, etc. A lot of their materials about using Canvas or the learning management system they have discuss hiding these same things, because they do not really help you organize things for students. They're great for organizing things for yourself. So think about those pages as really your own personal filing cabinet. When I started teaching 20 some years ago, I had a filing cabinet in the back room that had copies that I had made over the summer, assignments, handouts, worksheets, things that I was going to give to students. But I never really just let the students go into the filing cabinet and grab what they want when they wanted. I handed things out. So think about the assignments pages, the discussion pages, or the menus, as if you're thinking about that as the filing cabinet. Think about these modules that we're going to talk about as really the place where you organize, hand things out to the students. So before I jump into those modules, here's just a quick reminder that if you go into the settings of your course that you're going to find on the bottom of your course page, you can go to the navigation tab, and here you're going to find a place where you can either drag and drop or use the three-dot overflow menu to enable or disable things from the course navigation. Now, typically, as an instructor, if it's disabled, you're still going to see it. It's just going to have this little eyeball showing you that students can't see this. There are a few things that you probably want to have enabled. Announcements is one of them. If you are somebody that is going to use item banks or quizzes in your Canvas course, there is an items banks thing over here that I would recommend keeping enabled. Students can't see that by default anyway. There's a couple other things. One of them is the dropout detective. You can leave that enabled. Students can't see it. They don't have permissions for it. So if you're ever unsure of what something is, let me know. You will find a lot of things that are in here because they are made available to certain textbooks or certain courses, certain instructors that are using some sort of integration with their publisher. Things like you can see hidden back here, a little Stunkent or Stukent thing. That is a textbook publisher. Probably don't need it if you're not using their textbook or haven't talked to their rep on how to use that in the first place. So when we're talking about modules, the thing that really makes modules powerful compared to those assignment pages is the fact that you can structure them and release them in the way that you want. Modules allow you to have all of this content chunked into a specific category, whether it's a week, whether it's a unit, however you're doing it, some sort of topic, and then you can release that. It also provides an easy way for you to see, like, hey, I've released this to students, which we'll see in a future slide. There are some pretty advanced things in here that some people use, which is using the idea of prerequisites. This is probably more common in like a summer course or an independent study where a student might be going at their own pace, because you can set up prerequisites that a student has to do these things or get this score on a quiz, etc., before they are able to see what's next in the module. I shy away from using that too much because it can become kind of a chore if every single assignment is like, you have to do this one before you do this one, you have to do this. A lot of times, if a student has looked at all materials and somehow their Canvas gets reset, they might have to just do a bunch of clicking again. But it is a really powerful thing if you are doing an independent study. And overall, modules provide a little bit more context. Pages, on the other hand, are going to provide a lot more context. So we're going to kind of see the comparison between these two things. So when you're in a brand new course, there might not be any modules created. It's really easy to add a module. The top with the plus green menu when you're on the modules area. This plus green module button just allows you to add a module. You can name it whatever you want. It could be a week one, it could be a course resources, it could be a unit one, whatever chunking scheme you're going with. There's some other things you can do in here. This little snowman or overflow menu gives access to things like the scheduling, where you can say, hey, I've published all these materials, but now I'm going to schedule them so that they don't show up to students until a specific date and time. It's great for me because I often forget to publish a module. I might be standing in front of the students in class, showing them all of these things, and they get a hand up like, hey, we can't see that yet. And it's like, oh yeah, that's right, I haven't published the module. So a lot of times I will just schedule them to be released on a Sunday or a Monday, whenever that happens to be. It's also where you can add the prerequisites for things they have to do before they can see them. The little circle that you're going to see down at the end of the line of any module is really kind of an indication as to whether or not this module is published. Now, you have to be careful because you can publish a module and all of the individual items within that module are going to have this same little circle. So you can publish a module but keep everything inside of it unpublished. So basically they can just see the name of the module, which is fine. A lot of times I find that it happens by mistake the other way, where someone has published all of the items in a module but forgot to publish the module, so students can't see any of it. So keep that in mind. It's a great way with that little green check mark to know, yep, students are able to see this, it's ready to go. When it comes to adding content to modules, really the plus menu gives you the options to add all of the different types of things you're going to use, whether it's an assignment, a quiz, a file. You can add pages, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Discussions. You can make just text headers, although I really encourage people to not add too much to these module pages. You'll see why in a minute. So a lot of extra text headers that are just categorization within a module, I think is a little bit overkill and can get a little bit hard to navigate. This is also where you might find a use for just linking to an external URL, like, hey, here's the wiki page for what we're doing. There are also external tools. These are tools that are added into Canvas but are not Canvas tools that you might be able to grab something and add. Some of them are even developed by Canvas, but until they are fully released, they may be showing as an external tool. The other thing to remember is that you can add existing content. When you add a file, you don't have to add a new file. You can add a file and create and then pick one from your computer, or when you click on it, it will show you all of the files that you already have in the course. Same thing for assignments. You can create a new assignment, but if you already have the assignment created, maybe you have it in Module 1, and this is Module 5, and you're like, I want to re-add that assignment. That's probably, it's not the same as adding it a second time. It is more likely here at the very first day of class, I'm going to tell you about the term paper that we're writing. So I put the assignment in Module 1. And then later in Module 5, I just re-add that same assignment just so they can see the instructions again and be reminded. And then perhaps in week 16, I might have the collection place where I just add that assignment a third time. This does not create new assignments. It just adds existing assignments to the course. Our goal with the idea of using home pages, though, is getting rid of what I used to refer to as the scroll wheel of death. Was a common one. I found a new name for it. Someone referred to it this year as put an end to Scrollmageddon. You can see over here on the right, there's everything from pages, subtext or headers, there's discussions and attachments, all this stuff on the right. And in a 16-week course, this can become really overwhelming. This is also another reason why I very rarely release everything to students at once, because if your home page is a module page like this and a student comes in and sees 16 weeks of links after link after link, it can get really overwhelming. And it doesn't really provide a whole lot of context. It gives it in chunks, but there's nothing really there to help them understand what they're doing and why they're doing. So rather than embracing this idea of scrolling, the focus is to embrace the idea of clicking through to new things. And in that case, we utilize pages. So here's what we said before about creating a useful homepage. First impressions, tell them what to do after you've welcomed them, and then get them to the place in the course where they need to be going. When you're doing this, I think it's really important to not become overly focused on making everything pretty. Simple is a lot of times better, especially in a case like this. Embrace the idea of white space. You don't have to have all of the bells and whistles and extra colors and fonts. Just keep it simple. Also, keep it structured and focus your attention on accessibility. That is not just for the design of the homepage. That goes for images that you add, videos that you upload, fonts and colors and things that you choose as you're putting these things through their paces when you're putting ink to paper, if you will. Pages are pretty easy to create. They use what is affectionately known as a what you see is what you get editor. It looks a lot like when you're creating a page. It looks a lot like what you do when you're in Microsoft Word, etc. I'm typically tell people to avoid just a straight copy and paste too often from programs like Microsoft Word. Word processors tend to put their own code into the fonts and whatever to make it look the way it does on the page. I will do a copy and paste, but I will usually recommend to remove all of the formatting. There is a button, I don't think it's shown right here under the overall menu, that I think is like a T with a little X on it. That's like remove all the formatting, takes all the bullet points away, etc., and format things within Canvas when you're doing that. I think in Windows a Control-Shift-V typically pastes without formatting as well. But the Pages menu is over here as well. You can go there, or you can add a page to a module. For a home page, I tend to go to the Pages menu, and there's usually a button that says, let me view all of the pages. And you'll see a list and name of all the pages you have in a course. You can just add a page, give it a title. Like this might be a home page. In that home page, you can add text and images, to kind of give it some sort of layout. You can embed or record video. This button right here where you've got the little video player, you can add a link from YouTube to have it embedded right in there, or Vimeo I believe would work. You can add files yourself, although I really recommend having it shared somewhere and then posting links to it to reduce file size and how long it takes for a page to load. But you can also just record. If you were making this home page as like, hey, welcome to the course, I want to have a little picture or a little video of me welcoming students to the course. Inside of here and in just about anywhere where you can write, including discussion posts, assignment instructions, etc., you can use this drop-down menu and it will give you the option to record video or audio. Just give it permission to use your web camera and it'll give you a little prompt to start recording, record away, and then post it in there. We will talk a little bit later about a new feature in our Canvas installation, which is called Studio, which is focused on helping you make more little screencasts quickly right within Canvas to be able to be used throughout your courses, and then shared from course to course, etc. So we'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. You can also attach files directly to this. You can use the documents and upload a PDF, and it will put a little link that's like, here's the PDF. When they click on it, it loads it. It will add that file directly to your filing cabinet. You can do the same thing with links. Not only can you use links to other websites, but you can use links to other parts of the Canvas course, which I think is going to be really the emphasis that we use in structuring this and then helping students navigate. There's even a little built-in icon maker. I believe it's this thing right here that allows you to just make little simple icons, color that say like page 1, page 2, page 3, etc. I've seen a lot of people use that in order to create the buttons for their website or for their homepage, if you will. I mentioned the idea of linking to different parts of the course, and so For example, here's some text that's written that's about to be on the home page. You can highlight that text and use the little link menu. And instead of saying, oh, I want an external link to like Google or something, you can do a course link. And what's really nice is when you click on this course link, it's going to open up this little menu that allows you to pick pretty much any part of your course. You can pick a specific module, a specific assignment, a specific page. So you can link students right from the home page to like module number 5. That's what you see a lot of times on home pages that have that, jump to week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They just have a button that is highlighted. That button could be text, it could be an image, and they have linked it to a specific module. Here's an example of an image. This is typically the images that are in the default template. If you decide to use some of those, a lot of times it comes with like instructor and resources and whatnot. These are just pictures. Clicking on a picture and then going up to that link. If there's already a link there, you'd have to remove it, but you go up to that link like we had on this last page and say like, here's where I want this picture. When the student clicks on this picture, send them here. I'm going to emphasize though, if you're putting pictures on Canvas, even if it's just little button icons, to make sure when you do that, the image options has this alt text, which is really there for screen readers. So if somebody is utilizing a screen reader to go across the screen and kind of read the page, it gets the pictures, and a lot of times it just gives the file name, which could be very ugly. So putting in a little alternate text will allow the screen reader to know, like, this is a picture of the resources link, or this is a picture of the instructor link, etc. So really encourage that, especially just little things for thinking about accessibility. And since I'm talking about screen readers, when you're formatting the text for your home page, or really for any page, rather than doing what I catch myself doing all the time, which is, going down and saying like, oh, I want this to be, stand out a little bit. So I'll just make it bold and a little bit bigger and give it the kind of the heading idea. Use the built-in heading formats. That also helps screen readers understand the different section structure and how the text flows through different things, instead of just being regular text so that it doesn't really know how to read it. So for the use of screen readers, I really encourage you to think about using those built-in headings. I give that same advice to people that are working with Microsoft Word. I see a lot of students as examples when they're writing a paper and they're like, oh, I have to center and bold this. They center it, they bold it, they make it bigger. And I encourage them, you can adjust the different formatting so that you can click that and it'll be consistent. And then when you get done with your paper, if you're like, oh, I really don't like, the font I used for all the headings. One click, you can change all of them. But really for screen readers, and I encourage people to really rethink when they hear people talking about screen readers. I think they always are assuming that this might be a student that has a special need, for example, maybe poor vision, etc., that they're using the screen readers. But I think we've really found recently that because of the technology that is there, a lot more people are using screen readers just in their everyday consumption of content. And there's some good practical reasons to use something like a screen reader, because now you are not only reading content, but you're also hearing the content. So you're getting this multi-sensory input as you're taking a look at it. I know I personally do most of my heavy reading. If it's a website I'm going to go to and read an article on, I have a screen reader that I will use that sounds very natural, that reads it, and it really helps me to focus on just finishing the reading. And I do feel like I tend to remember more of the content as I'm going through. So it's not just kind of this little group of people that need it. There are people that don't necessarily need it but use it anyway. So think about those types of accessibility features when you are working with your course content. I mentioned before, people will like to take and try to make a way to make some things stand out on their module pages. This was a trick that came up in our Canvas training when we first started right after COVID, and that is the fact that you can use some of the built-in icons in Canvas in places like the weekly module names. So some people will do this and put little icons to help people recognize like what this is. Now, most assignments and pages have an icon built into it already. So I tend to only use this on like the module names. Perhaps it's a course resources module. I'll put things, or, in this case, I don't know how many. I don't think they have up to 16. I think they might only go up to like 8, but in an online course with 8 weeks, I will use some of these things like here's week 1, and just put a 1 on there. I don't use it very frequently, but here is the commands for pulling up that wherever you're typing. The Windows button and the period, or on Mac, it's Control Command Space, and it will bring up these little icons that you can use just to kind of add a little flair to your page, if you will. Those are not the same icons that you usually see for buttons on a homepage. I mentioned before that there's a button generator built right into Canvas that you can use to make little icons, and they're very simple. But a lot of times people are like, oh, I really want to make this look a little bit nicer. And so there's some recommendations I would give you. Number one, take a look at the Canvas Commons. The Canvas Commons is resources that are shared under the Creative Commons license by other teachers or institutions. They are put in the Canvas Commons with the intent for those things to be shared and used by other Canvas users. So you might find someone has a nice layout and you want to borrow that layout in the Canvas Commons. It could be there for you to import that into your course. I always recommend for myself creating a sandbox course. When you go to your courses, all courses menu, you can make a new course, call it whatever you want, import something from the Commons into that course, just to kind of test it out, play around with it, get rid of the stuff you don't want before importing it into my course. There's also a tool, very popular tool called Canva, which is great for creating just little simple graphics, buttons, header images, etc. Canva does start to utilize some AI, and so I listed up here a nice little website that finds a lot of AI sites. So if you're just looking for inspiration, or looking for, in some ways, just very simple programs that might do something like, hey, I'm just trying to create 12 buttons that are this color that say these things, you might be able to find some tools in there. I personally, when I used and created the default templates, partially because this is what they shared them and it was mind-blowing to me, they shared kind of these default template buttons that you see, like those instructor resources, or the header where it says, EDU 653. Those things were all created with PowerPoint. So they shared them to me with PowerPoint. It was just they changed the screen or the page size on there, and they used just simple PowerPoint tools to add the text where they want, put little pictures on there, and then save those things as images rather than as PowerPoint slides. And it'll usually ask, like, do you want to save just this slide or all of the slides? And I have PowerPoint presentations that are just all of the SPM courses or all of the nursing courses with the headers on there kind of saved. They're loaded into the Canvas Commons under the WLC template. Like, all of the buttons are there. Probably too many. I wouldn't necessarily recommend downloading all of them, but if you need help, just let me know. The other thing I used was a website called the Button Factory. Allowed me to say I want this size, I want rounded edges, I want this font, and I want it to say this. And it just created a little button. So all of the little week 1, week 2, week 3, or module 1, module 2, module 3, those ones were just the Button Factory, just an online site to create those types of things. So I talked about having a course homepage that would say, hey, welcome to the course, here's some things to know, and now we're going to take you to different parts of the course, like the modules, etc. I personally recommend also having a module homepage. In my courses, those are referred to as the steps to completion for a unit or for a week or for a 2-week section. So when a student is on the home page and says, I want to go to week 1, it takes them from the home page to the week 1 home page. And the nice thing about that is inside of the module homepage, you can now provide direct links to the assignments and have a little bit more context. So here's an example of like one of my week 1 home pages. This is an online course, but you'll see when students would be at the home page and click week 1, they would come here, and it gives, you know, some of the instructions like, hey, please go to this external website. Then I want you to go and record something that is this is a discussion post, and then I want you to go over and write a personal reflection, and this is where one of the assignment links. So it's got links both to external and internal, but now you can see it provides a lot more context about what the student is doing. So I can write a little bit more. I still don't write all of the instructions here. The module page would just say 1.2 reflection and discussion post. This page says write a personal reflection in that post, you know, and gives a little bit of context. When they click here, that's where I have the full detailed instructions like, oh, you have to follow APA formatting and it needs to be this long or this many words, etc. So detailed instructions are in the assignment. This is just kind of a peek, and here's what we're doing for the entire week. A lot of times people then ask me, if you're really taking them from the home page over to this mod or this home page for the unit and you have all the links in here, why in the world are you putting the things in the modules in the first place? Well, the answer really is I can use these little green check marks. When I go to the module page in week 1, I can see, yep, I have all of these things released for students. So it allows me to do that, and allows me to publish them in future semesters with just one click. Publish the module and everything in it, and I know it's ready to go. The other reason is that modules are really good for the mobile devices. The Canvas app that students frequently use, by default, is going to land students on a module page rather than on a home page. So I want to make sure that everything I'm putting on the home page is also in the modules, so that if a student is using the app, they can go and check that quickly. So yes, it may be a little bit more work for me up front, but I want to provide access to students regardless of how they decide to interact with the course. Another thing to keep in mind is that students don't always use the same homepage that instructors use. Students have a dashboard, and instructors have this as well, that is really a to-do list dashboard rather than a courses dashboard. Their to-do list dashboard is really going to be sorted by date and the things that are assigned for that date. This is why it's really important to add dates to all of the things that you want students to do, because it will naturally populate their dashboard. It will give them almost a checklist of, hey, here's the things I need to do as I'm going through the week. And quite often, if something doesn't show up here, I would not be surprised if students would use the excuse like, oh, I didn't realize it wasn't on my dashboard. Now, that's still an excuse, but I want to remove as many stumbling blocks as I can to students having success in my course. So even things like readings that are not typically assigned with a due date and a number of points, etc., I want them to have those. So there's a couple of ways to do that. I personally, I'm going to skip this slide. I personally add a page to their to-do list. Now this page might be the steps to completion for the week. So I will add it to their to-do list for a certain date. So I'm like, hey, I want you to at least remember to go and look at this page that tells you everything you're supposed to do this week. I may also add a page that is just their reading list for week 4. Might just say reading list week 4. Here's the articles and the book chapters that you're supposed to be reading this week, and give that a to-do list. It's not something that is graded, but at least it shows up in the things that students are supposed to be doing, so that they can be more prepared for class. There are other options. You can create assignments that are not graded, that have a due date, And because of that, it will show up on their to-do list. Now, it's important to remember when you're creating an assignment, there are submission types. There's submission types such as this is turned in through an external tool like Turnitin. This is turned in online like an assignment normally would be as far as a paper. You could also have an on paper or a no submission, and those two get mixed up quite often. No submission assignment means there's nothing for students to do or submit, which also means there's really probably nothing for students to do. I don't really understand that one, but that way it doesn't show up on their to-do list. The only time I can think of a no submission assignment is when I am going to grade something like participation. I'm like, hey, I'm just going to add this grade in here. I'll make no submission. There's nothing students did for this. There was no due date on it. I'm just going to put a grade in. However, if you are thinking about something that maybe is something they do outside of computer, like they're giving a presentation or they're performing, some sort of performance in music, etc., that would probably be best as an on-paper assignment if it's something that they need to practice for and say, hey, you have this thing, this presentation is due on the 13th. Give it a on-paper submission, put a date on it, that way it shows up in their to-do list. So really powerful kind of dashboard control. I skipped this before, but I always remind faculty, like, you also have a to-do list. If you're using the normal course pages, or dashboard, on the right-hand side, it will give you things like, hey, here's some things you need to do, some portfolio things to correct, etc. Just as a reminder to go and correct the things that students have turned in. Now, just to kind of recap where we have been, I really recommend having a course homepage. For me, my homepage is going to direct students to the module pages for each unit. And when I say module page, that's my module homepage. You could just direct them to the module. Great place to start. As you get more advanced, I'd really encourage you to think about that module page because it gives them more context to use a little mini homepage for each week. And then from my module page, I link them to the assignments and discussions. So that really is my workflow. They start at the home page, they go to a module page, they go from there to the assignments, and then I've had students in the past say, I never even realized there was a module section in the course because I never used it. They didn't go on their app using like a phone or a tablet. They just went right to the home page and did everything from there. I usually found out about that when I would forget to put something in my module homepage that I might have talked about in class. So keep that in mind. As we finish out this, I want to just introduce you briefly to a new part of Canvas, which is the Canvas Studio. I talked about before about this idea of recording video and importing media, etc., and putting it on there. Canvas Studio allows you to record your video, little screen shares like the one I'm doing right here, without needing a whole lot of extra software. You can use this built-in studio to record files that are going to be added to your account, and then you can use them in various different courses that you have. You can also upload media if you have an old MP4 of something laying around that you need to upload. So you can upload a media file to Canvas. I'd be really careful about uploading way too much. We have a pretty fair amount of storage. It is shared across the institution, so it's not like each teacher has a specific amount. And I know that some teachers are going to make heavier use than others on this, but I always recommend to be mindful about the storage space. That's why I personally always use things like YouTube or Vimeo, because that storage is not being done within Canvas. That's being done on YouTube, which you can save as much video as you want, and I will use this external link to provide links to that. What's really cool about the Canvas Studio, though, is even if you're using or recording your own video or using something that is done by YouTube or Vimeo, you have tools to annotate or even create interactive quizzes with those assignments. It's pretty straightforward to use as well. The idea is go down to Studio and you can create a video. I imported one of mine from YouTube here. I used this little section, added video, threw my YouTube link in, and it pulled up one of my Canvas tutorials. To create a quiz or even just an annotation part on that video, it's really as simple as this little overflow menu, hitting something like create quiz, and then giving it a quiz title. I can have multiple quiz titles for the same video. So I could have the same video used in different classes, or maybe even make different versions of a quiz if I wanted to. You can enter a description there, it's optional. What I find really interesting is this whole idea of hiding question markers on the timeline for students. A lot of times quizzing software has the ability to lock students from being able to fast forward or rewind or jump around in the video. Haven't found that in this, which was kind of like, oh well, that's unfortunate. Students will just jump right to where the questions are and answer them. However, if you hide the question markers, if students start jumping around, they may jump right past a question and never answer it. So I suppose in some kind of way, it's kind of like a, hey, you're really going to need to watch this whole video because you have no idea where I'm going to ask the question. However, after thinking about it, I was like, well, one student could take this interactive quiz, especially if this is being done, independently. One student could take the quiz first and say, hey, the quiz questions are at these times, and then students could jump right to them. But the bright side of life, the optimist in me says at least one person watched the video in its entirety. So you can do that. You can also have the annotations hidden on the timeline if you want to as well. Now, once you've created this idea for it, you really just have this little timeline that you can move back and forth and add things like multiple choice, true, false, multiple answer questions. Those are the only ones you have for right now on a video quiz. You can also, if you're doing annotations, this is where you would hit a button and say, like, I want to annotate right here. And the annotation could be just a little pop-up note. It could be something that you record, like a little voiceover to kind of do the different things, and say something else while a video is playing. And remember, this can all be done on any video that's you've created or videos that other people have created because of the licensing via YouTube and Vimeo. If they have that online, you are free to use that, and now you are not changing their video, but you're really just adding these questions interactively as they go along. If you want to add this thing to an assignment, I really recommend going to the assignments page, and rather than just going to the Canvas module page, go to the Canvas assignments page and create an assignment. You can give it a name, but under more options, you're going to use this external tool that I talked about before. Once you get down to the external tool, you're going to click this find, and you're going to look for the studio option. So the studio option is going to pop up, and then it's going to take a second to kind of load all of the different videos that you have here, and then you can scroll down and find the one that you're looking for. Once you find a video, you can also just say, hey, I'm just embedding this video, or I'm embedding the quiz. I would imagine if there's a notation version of it, there'd be an annotation part there, and you can embed that video right, or that quiz right into your assignment. Now it's going to allow you to assign that and actually get grades collected from the tool. The final thing I want to talk about is just kind of a passing note, and that is talking about files. I have noticed there are many people, then I'm just going to jump back to see this. There are many people that will go to the files section and upload a big group of files up there that they're going to use in the course, and that is absolutely fine. However, you do need to be careful about the publishing and availability. One of the reasons that I do not like having this files visible to students is because there are a lot of things in that course that I may not even know are there, that I don't want them to have access to ahead of time. Maybe I put up a study guide for a quiz that is old and isn't going to be helpful from a previous semester, etc. There's a lot of things that's like, I just don't want to have to worry about it. When I create files in the modules, it automatically takes care of these permissions. If you upload them on your own, you do need to make sure that that those things are available. Especially, I use a lot of times the available with link, so that I can take that file and put it in a module somewhere. Otherwise, if you upload them to a hidden part of your file structure, someplace where it's private and only available to you. Students may get to the modules and not see them. Personally, I just recommend using the Canvas page, but if you want, there's a lot of resources on Canvas on how to use that files, so if you want to do that. The other option is, because we are a Dropbox school, I personally just create a Dropbox folder. If I want a lot of files for students, create a Dropbox folder, put all the files I want students to have in there, make sure they're named well, create a link that people with a link can view that folder, and drop that link into a Canvas module and say, here's all of the files for this, and it allows students to go and get them and use them on their own. So that's my recommendation, but be careful if you're using that files page to upload directly. I always upload to the page. I will upload to the module. I'll upload to the assignment. I very rarely upload to the files area. Otherwise, just really encourage you to kind of explore what Canvas has to offer. There's a huge amount of resources that are online. The Canvas Commons, there's Canvas discussion boards. It is one of the leading market share LMSs in the world, so there's plenty of YouTube videos and articles and resources from other institutions that talk about that. Explore using some of the tools. Talk to your publishers about integrations that they may have with Canvas. And really, I always remind people, think about tool fatigue. The overuse of discussions, the overuse of doing the same thing every week can really lead to this kind of fatigue that is just going to be another obstacle in the way of your learning objectives. So think about those things, and I'd really encourage you to check some things out. And I left this a couple of times if you were looking at it. I really left this because almost this entire presentation was made using Gamma's AI, along with some AI help from things like Google. What's the Google one? Google Gemini. Just kind of it kind of outlined some of the things in here to talk about. I found that Dr. Balza gave a presentation about that, so I just wanted to test it out. I really only used a couple of the slides by themselves, but the overall theme and a few of these images, I'm like, well, these ones are fine. I'll leave these in. But for the most part, it was a good starting point. It made an entire presentation in just a few minutes, and then it still took me quite a few hours just to make it exactly what I wanted. You can find more tools like that in a couple of these things. I put these on WLCIDC.com. That is my site for instructional design things for WLC. There's plenty of links and guides on how to copy courses and how to take attendance, etc. Here's some other things, just websites I found while I was doing this one, as well as a few of those best practices from different universities, like University of Minnesota, Stanford Teaching Commons, when they talked about not sharing some of those things. And you might find other things there as well. The Button Factory, Canva, this Toolify AI, if you're looking to just dip your toes into AI and see what it can do for you, as well as some of these other videos that I have, and not all mine. Some of those are from Canvas trainers as well. So you can find those on WLCIDC.com. Hopefully you found something useful in this video, and hopefully it helps you kind of take the next step in designing your Canvas course. Thanks.